I hope that you're well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 2 English lesson on action verbs. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English, which is language arts, grade 2. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of action verbs. All right, so we are doing action verbs, right? So we said our chapter is action verbs. The subject is English, which is language arts, grade 2. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of action verbs is to use action verbs and also to identify action verbs. So we're going to use action verbs as well as identify action verbs. All right, so action verbs, right? It tells you what a noun does, right? It's basically the action that is taking place. So we say that action verbs, it tells us what the noun does, right? So if you are, for example, currently, if somebody were to ask you what you're doing now, right, then you will basically say it's either that you are sitting, you sit, or you're listening, you are watching, playing, standing, dancing, right? Those are all action verbs, right? So we see that the action verb, it tells us what the noun does. And remember, a noun, it is basically, it names people, places, things, or even animals, right? So if you are basically the noun, so we can basically ask what you are doing. So whatever action that you are specifically doing, that is an action verb. It is something that you are doing. An action verb, it tells us what either someone or something is doing, right? For example, if we look at the example, it says she ate an apple, right? So if we were to ask what she's doing, right, then we can say that she ate an apple. So ate, it basically tells us what she's doing. Ate is our action verb. So it's either she ate or she eats the apple, right? That basically tells us what she is doing. She is the noun. Then we have another one where we say we smile, right? So the question is, what are we doing, right? We smile. So smile is our action verb, and we over here is our noun, right? And it says that the action verb, it tells us what the noun does. There's our verb, there's the noun. So the noun is we, and what are we doing? We smile. All right. So that is basically action verbs, right? If you can think of more action verbs, things that you're doing, the action that you're doing, right? Because verbs are doing words. Give me a few examples of doing words, even if you're just going to give me random words. What are a few examples of doing words? Or you can even give me a sentence telling me what you're doing now. So please write in the comment section what you are doing now. Like if I were to say what I'm doing now, then I can say I can either say I am teaching or I can say I am talking, right? So I, which is the noun, and teaching or talking is the verb, right? So what are you doing? So write down what you are doing. All right. If we were to think of a few action verbs, right, without even having to write a sentence, right? A few action verbs can be to walk. That is basically something that someone is doing. Let me rather use a different color. I'm going to use a different color. So walk is an action verb, right? It's something that we are doing, right? Talk is an action verb. If you are busy watching TV, then watching is an action verb. Watch or watching is an action verb, right? It basically shows what you're doing. Eat, if you're eating or you ate, that is an action verb. Dance is an action verb. Something that you are doing, right? It's some form of movement that you're doing. Jump is an action verb. Whatever sports that you are playing is an action verb, right? So you can think of more things. If you were to run, there we don't have the word run, but run is an action verb, right? Kick, that is also an action verb. If you clean, that's an action verb. Because you're cleaning, you're doing your chores, that's an action verb. If you are playing with your pet and we all need to, for example, pet your pet, pets. So if you are petting or rubbing, that is an action verb. Rub is an action verb, right? These are the words in blue are action verbs, right? It basically tells us what the noun is doing. It is an action that you are doing, right? Even to sit is an action verb. What are you doing? I'm sitting, right? So something that you're doing now, you're listening. That's an action verb. You're listening, right? You are watching. You are typing. You're playing on your phone. There we have play, right? So these words in blue are all called action verbs, right? And we said once again, an action verb, it tells you what a noun does. It tells you either what someone or something does. And we made an example where we said she, which is the noun, ate an apple, and ate is our verb. And we smile. So smile is our verb, right? All right, so before we go to our two activities, here are once again a few examples of action verbs. So these are examples of action verbs, right? And I also made a few examples already where I wrote it down in blue. So here we have a few more examples of action verbs. If we first look at this picture right in blue, whatever that this guy is doing, right, we can say that he runs, right? So run, that's an action verb. To clean, at something that he's doing. Dance, something that someone is doing. Walk, it's an action that you are doing, you're walking. Even when you're sad and you cry, that's an action. When a baby starts to crawl, that's an action that they are doing, right? Action verb. Fighting, laugh, to ride a bike, listen to music, or you're listening to, your teacher, to read a book, to write a letter, or to write in your journal. Even thinking, that's an action verb. It's something that you are doing. Cook is an action verb. Climb is an action verb. And to drink or eat is an action verb. Right? So these are examples of action verbs, and it's even added examples to the ones it was already given. We mentioned walk, run. So to even just stand, and I also said sit, right? So to stand or to sit is an action verb. We mentioned cry, read, laugh, play, whether you're playing football, you're playing basketball, you're playing baseball, right? You play, jump, think, and ride. Those are all action verbs, right? It basically shows us what someone or something is doing. It tells us what someone or something is doing, or it tells us what the noun is doing. And the noun can either be a person or it can be an animal, right? All right. All right, we're going to start with this activity over here. I'm going to circle the one. We're going to start with this activity where we are going to identify the verbs. So we're first going to identify the action verb, then we're going on to the next activity, right? And there we are going to use our different action verbs. So we're going to have to think of whichever action verb that best suits that specific sentence. right? So before we continue, we said an action verb, it tells us what the noun is doing, or basically, or what the person, someone, or something is doing. All right, so here it says, the first sentence is, Brenna sings on the school bus. Brenna sings on the school bus. If we look at the first sentence, what is Brenna doing? Because Brenna is our noun. So what is Brenna doing? Let's identify within that sentence what Brenna is doing. It says Brenna sings on the school bus. So what is Brenna doing? All right, so if we were to identify the action verb within that sentence, then we can say Brenna sings on the school bus. So which means that sings is our action verb, right? All right, let's go to the second sentence. It says, Colin digs in the dirt with his shovel. Colin digs in the dirt with his shovel. What is the action within that sentence? What is Colin doing? Colin is the noun. So what is Colin doing? Try to figure out what the action verb is within that sentence. What is the action that Colin is doing? What do you think Colin is doing? All right, so we can then say that Colin digs in the dirt with his shovel. So basically, digs is our action verb. So what does Colin do? Colin digs in the dirt with his shovel. So digs is our action verb. If we look at the next sentence is, my older sister carries my books for me. My older sister carries my books for me. What is the action verb within that sentence? What is the older sister doing? What is the older sister doing? All right, so if we were to identify what the older sister does, then we can say my older sister carries my books for me. So carries is our action verb, right? All right, so yes, digs in our previous one is correct. And then we already on to the next one. Let's go to the fourth one. It says the young boy banged his blocks together. So the young boy banged his blocks together. What is our action verb within that sentence? The young boy banged his blocks together. What is the action that the young boy is doing? What is the young boy doing? All right, so we can then say that the young boy banged, right? So banged is basically the action. So the young boy banged his blocks together. So banged is our action verb. Then it says Colin. Oh, we already did Colin. Let me remove Colin. We already have that one. Then it says my sister builds toy airplanes. My sister builds toy airplanes. What is my sister doing? What is my sister doing? It says my sister builds toy airplanes. So now the question is, what is my sister doing? My sister builds toy airplanes. What is the action verb within that sentence that tells us what the sister is doing? All right, so if we were to identify the action verb within that sentence that tells us what my sister does, and then we can say my sister builds toy airplanes, right? So that is the action verb. So far we've identified these action verbs within the sentences, which is sings. So sings is the action verb. Digs is an action verb. Carries, banged, and builds, right? Those are action verbs and it tells us what the noun is doing. It tells us what someone or something is doing, right? And yes, carries is correct. All right, now we're going on to the next activity, right? And with this activity, we're going to have to identify by writing down what we think is the action verb within that sentence. So we're going to choose the action verb that matches within that sentence. All right. Now it says airplanes, right? Over my house every day. What does airplanes do? So what does airplanes do? We need to now basically answer the next set of questions, the activity, right? So we need to identify the action verbs within the sentences, right? Not identify it within the sentence. We're going to have to basically write down the action verbs. So we say airplanes over my house every day. Airplanes does what? What does airplanes do? What does airplanes do? So airplanes over my house every day. Do airplanes walk, run? Do they fly? Do they jump? What does airplanes do? All right. So if we choose what the airplane does, we can say the airplanes fly over my house every day, right? So fly is the action verb that tells us what the airplane does. Abby, faster than she used to. What does Abby do? What action is Abby doing? It says Abby, faster than she used to. Does Abby walk? Does Abby run? Does Abby sleep? Does Abby jump? What is Abby doing faster than she used to? Choose an action verb that matches that sentence. All right, so we can then say Abby runs faster than she used to. So runs, it is basically the action that shows us what Abby does, right? Then it says Erica what her pet every day. What does Erica do with her pet every day? So Erica what her pet every day. The action. All right, so we can say Erica pets her cat every day, right? It's like rubbing her cat, playing with a cat, pets her cat every day. Oh, the word pets. Let me write it nicer. Pets. There we go. Then we say Eddie what the baseball to Cooper. What does Eddie do with the baseball to Cooper? All right, so we can then say Eddie throws. Can either say Eddie throws the baseball to Cooper or Eddie bounces the baseball to Cooper, right? But let's just say Eddie throws the baseball to Cooper. Then we have the one that says Stan, his mom around the house. Stan need to do chores, right? Or basically his mom is busy cleaning. Now they're saying he what his mom around the house with chores. All right, so we can say Stan helps his mom around the house. So he helps his mom with chores, he helps his mom with cleaning, right? So he helps his mom around the house. And then the last one says Dale while he cleans his room. So what is Dale doing? What do you think Dale does while he cleans his room? All right, so we can then say Dale dances, right? While he cleans his room. Remember when somebody dances when cleaning or listens to music when they are cleaning, right? That is like some form of motivation to continue cleaning, right? That room will be spotless. Remember, we can't say Erica plays her cat every day. Because if we say plays her cat every day, then play does not fit within that sentence. Walk seems okay because we can say Erica walks her cat every day or walks a dog every day, right? Or pets her cat every day, but not plays her cat because we should say plays with her cat every day, right? All right. So we are doing our tutorial lesson on A plus students.ca. So now we're going to A plus students.ca. We said our chapters action verb, and the lessons that we are focusing on is to use action verbs, right? And we literally went over all of these activities already. And we said action verbs, it tells us what the noun does, right? The noun basically it can be a person or thing. So we can then say it tells us what someone or something does, right? So let's go to our test. So we're going to our test and we're going to identify the action verb within that sentence. We're going to complete the sentence with the action verb by choosing the correct action verb. It says, Miss Maxwell, do we say Miss Maxwell time in the children's library or Miss Maxwell works in the children's library? So Miss Maxwell time in the children's library or Miss Maxwell works in the children's library. We need to choose the correct action verb, and that is to complete the sentence. All right. So if we look at the sentence, right, it says complete the sentence with the action verb. So we will say Miss Maxwell works in the children's library. So Miss Maxwell works in the children's library. So works is correct because works is the action, right? Works is the action. Then we say Philip. Do we say Philip basketball higher than anyone else on the team? Or Philip jumps higher than anyone else on the team? All right, then if we choose the correct action verb, then yes, jumps is correct because jumps, it basically is the action or it tells us what Philip does. So Philip jumps higher than anyone else on the team. So well done, jumps is correct. Nina. So Nina prize games with her sister, or Nina played games with her sister. Nina prize games with her sister, or Nina played games with her sister. We need to choose the action. What is Nina doing with her sister? Does Nina prize games with her sister, or Nina played games with her sister? All right, so we can then say Nina played, right? So played, it is the action that tells us what Nina did or done. So Nina played, and played is our action. Then we can say the lady. Do we say the lady laughed when she won the prize? Or the lady first when she won the prize? The lady laughed when she won the prize? Or do we say the lady first when she won the prize? So the lady laughed when she won the prize, or do we say the lady first when she won the prize? We need to tell us, we need to say basically what the lady did, because the lady is the noun. All right, so we can then say the lady laughed when she won the prize. So well done, laugh is correct. So that was basically us using action verbs, right? So now we're going to identify the action verbs within a sentence, right? By identifying the specific verbs within that sentence. So we already did an explanation and we already did activities. So we're going to go straight to our test, right? All right, so we are going straight to our test and we're going to identify and select the action verb within the sentence. It says Eva buttoned her coat. Eva buttoned her coat. We need to select the action verb. Is it buttoned or is it coat? What did Eva do? Buttoned or she coat? So we need to identify and select the action verb. Do we say Eva buttoned a coat, as in buttoned, or is coat the correct action verb? Buttoned or coat the correct action verb? And if we select the action verb, then we can say Eva buttoned, right? It's like, tying your buttons of your coat or of your shirt. So Eva buttoned her coat, right? And buttoned is correct. Nicole pets the cat, right? So Nicole pets the cat. What is Nicole doing, right? Does she pets or cat? What is she doing? Pets or cat the cat? Pets the cat or cat the cat? We need to say what Nicole is doing. All right, and if we say what Nicole is doing, then we can say she pets her cat, right? Pets is like playing, rubbing, right? Her cat. So pets is correct. Dad watered the garden. We need to say what dad did with the garden. So dad watered the garden. We need to select the action verb. Is it watered or is it garden? Watered or garden? And if we select the correct action verb, then we can say dad watered the garden. And watered is correct. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on action verbs. We said action verbs. It basically tells us what the noun is doing. And remember, the noun, it either names either people or things, right? Or animals. Basically just tells us what someone or something is doing, if that is now in simpler explanation. So an action verb, it tells us what someone or something is doing, right? It's the action that the person does, and that is basically to do with the verb, right? All right, so we then used action verbs as well as identified action verbs within the sentences. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson, grade 2. Thank you very much for joining our class as well as for interacting. And I really hope you're going to have a good evening and a good weekend further. Goodbye.